Graphics are temporary, art direction is forever. Hmm. Do I agree with that? I think in some cases that is true, but I don't think in every case. Like, for example, with World of Warcraft, like, it has an art direction, but at the same time, like, the graphics on it obviously can be improved. It's the same with Final Fantasy 14. Like, most games, even when they have an art direction, like, it doesn't mean, like, the graphics aren't ever gonna, like, be improved. So maybe that's what it's referring to, is that the style is always going to be the same, while the graphics of that style can fluctuate or, get better. I doubt they get worse. I've not really seen a part where it gets worse, but usually they can get better. But that's like a really dumb argument, so we'll see what it's talking about.
Art direction is greater than graphics. Sure, we'll watch this.
If you don't know Audible, well darn. Looks like I need to tell you about Audible, the fantastic place to get a ton of great audiobooks to listen to anywhere, anytime.
I feel
Audible
like they're
has
too
a
expensive.
huge selection of
Just gonna be
audiobooks,
honest.
everything from the old classics way back in the day
I feel like they're
to
not
the
really
new
worth
books
it.
coming out now. And it is usable on both your computer, app, and basically here, there, anywhere on the
Bro,
go.
I'm surprised Audible still sponsors people. Like, I feel like everybody knows about Audible by now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
As for audiobook recommendations, you all know me. You know I love my Warhammer books, but sometimes Warhammer can get a little dark and depressing.
Yeah, it
So
does.
instead, let's find some that's a little bit more lighthearted. The Infinite and the Divine is a hilarious spy versus spy over 10,000 years story about two Necrons at each other's throats. And one I have not read yet, but want to get into very soon, is Caiaphas Cain, Hero of the Imperium, the commissar that stumbles his way to victory across all of the wonderful Warhammer 40k universe. Wonderful, I say, in quotes. If you want to check out these or any other audiobooks, go ahead and look in the description
Necron's
and
Paw,
go to
yeah.
audible.com/Bricky or text Bricky to 500-500. Thank you very much to Audible for sponsoring this video, and let's get on with the topic.
Let's see it.
Hello everybody, my
Hi.
name is Bricky, currently serving 10 to life for forcing you to draw Wonder Bread. Graphics are defined as a product of the graphic arts, usually in design or illustration. It is also
Sure.
known as visual images from computer processing. But to us,
It's how good the game looks, all right?
gamers, we deem graphics as do that shit look good.
Exactly.
I suppose you could
Okay.
say
Yep.
its origin
Here we
makes
go.
sense. If I go back to that Battlefield
Let's hear
3
it.
trailer way back
Eloquently
when, I would say,
said.
damn, those are some good graphics. As in, literally, the things I am seeing look good. The graphics on screen.
Yes,
but
the
really,
visuals
look
great.
graphics now are a term more so used to describe how good looking a game is. Does it have a good visual fidelity? Art
I think that, like, yeah, visual fidelity and like the resolution of like the character models and how detailed something is, I think
Yeah.
people refer to as graphics. Whereas
They-
like I think the art of the game is like the style.
Exactly. That's what I was saying earlier when he was talking about art direction. I see it as art style.
direction
I think,
is
graphics and
defined
style
as the
are different.
works from an art
Yeah.
director overseeing a film, publication, or any other media.
Or at least,
Another way
like,
to
that's how I
describe
see
it
it.
would be the process that creates the feeling of a tone or a setting in some kind of media. If the tone you're going for is a dark, dire, depressing tone,
Oh,
how do
shit.
you convey that through a visual mean that doesn't clash with the tone itself? Because I think it would be quite
Yeah, but that's also not true. A lot of games aren't just dark and like brooding. Like there's plenty of games that have like both, like good things and bad things, like dark and light in a sense. And they still have the same art style. So I don't know if I agree with like the whole art direction being forever, because if that was the case, like I'm trying to think of cases like Warcraft, I think is a good example of that. Like you have places that are really like bright and vibrant and full of life, but then you have places that are very dark, damp, and meant to invoke a more dark feel to it.
jarring if you told Cormac McCarthy's The Road story while making it look like Grand Budapest Hotel. The strength of your
was a good
graphics,
movie.
say for a film or TV show, the resolution, the quality of your camera is not what's used in order to create the tone you are going for. It certainly helps, but having a good resolution, having it look good from an actual pixel point of view doesn't convey tone. The opening of Saving Private Ryan isn't good because it's in 8K 700 frames a second.
Yeah.
It conveys a harrowing tone by sucking all the color out, by making it seem really claustrophobic, and with the use of props and extras on the battlefield to make it look like a battlefield.
Sure.
Or even smaller touches like never
Wonder where
showing
he's going
the
with
face of
this,
the enemy
'cause
in
this
the
isn't
beginning
really
sequences and only
a thing
seeing
for
either
games.
the point of view of their gun or the point of view of the soldiers with just those slight muzzle flashes coming from the bunker. Putting all these things together creates not only very hard to watch opening to a film, but it creates that tone you're looking for in which graphics mean almost nothing. This is something I've had to end up explain on more occasions than I would particularly like to.
Yeah, people don't fucking understand it. Yeah, I wanted to let him completely explain that. I think there's a lot of examples of this. You guys ever seen Limitless? And like whenever the guy's on the drugs, the saturation of the colors becomes like much more evident. Sin City, I think, is another great example of the art direction. Let's see. Those are the first two that come to my mind. And Dread, yeah, the Matrix, I think that's another good one. 300. Yeah, you can think of like.
And if you notice, Asmin is only naming off of videos, like movies. Not a single game was mentioned. That's why I'm like wondering where this is going. Maybe this has nothing to do with games. I just thought it was because he brought up graphics. Graphics don't really get brought up that often when it comes to movies. That's like a gaming thing. At least with my personal experience. Like I've never heard people talking about movies and like, oh, the graphics were shit. Like sometimes anime is like that, but that's about it.
Movies that are just like super fucking stylized. Zack Snyder movies, pretty much all of them are like that. And I'm trying to think of some other
Scott
ones with, like
Pilgrim.
very evident. Oh, like 1917. It's like 1917, 1914. I think it was 1917. The movie where it's like it's filmed as if it is all one massive take. So like that's another example. Yeah, Tim Burton is another great example of that.
Oh yeah.
Mad Max. Yeah, Mad Max is a good example of that too, for sure. And I think games are the same thing. Like Wind Waker was one of the first games that did this. It got very popular in GameCube days with like they called it cell shading at the time.
But that's different. Like you're talking about a stylization versus an overall tone of a movie. So I would disagree with Asmin. Like those are two different things. Because you can have cell shading and still like get a very, very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like dark themed, a dark tone to the game if they want to do it. But it doesn't like lend itself greatest to that, but they can still do it, of course. But I don't know. Like that's, to me it's a weird thing to conflate the two. Like tone and style are two different things.
And now you have like all the anime variants of that, like Genshin Impact, Tower of Fantasy, fucking Blue Protocol. I mean, there's like literally 1,000 of these games coming out because people like them. Borderlands, yeah, there you go. Jet Set Radio. So this is there are a lot of examples of this. And
Yeah, I mean that would be like comparing freaking Breath of the Wild to Borderlands. Like they're nothing alike. Like almost at all. That I, other than them being games and having cell shaded.
it's in film. Obviously, art itself has very evident themes, and like the direction of the art is very clear.
Yeah, like Diablo
And
2.
it's the reason why I wanted to talk about it today. As far as I'm concerned, graphics mean next to nothing while art direction is consistently superior. Graphics are temporary.
Yes.
Art direction is forever. Let's
This is
start with
so
an example.
By the way, on this, he is totally fucking right about like.
I wouldn't completely agree. I think in terms of, I don't know. I don't think either are that important. Like, just gonna be straight up honest with you. Like, I think the mechanics and gameplay of a thing is gonna be more important than the art direction or the actual graphics. I think those are, what's the word I'm looking for? That's like the frosting and the sprinkles, if you know what I'm saying. Like that's not what's going to get me to engage into it or, you know, eat the cupcake. If the cupcake itself tastes like shit, doesn't matter how much frosting or sprinkles you put on it, I'm going to hate that cupcake. But it's the other way around, where if it's no frosting or sprinkles, like I might still enjoy the cupcake. It just won't be as good as like I think it could be.
The premise of this video is something I completely agree with.
The one I used earlier, Battlefield 3.
Yeah, Valheim and
Battlefield has
Minecraft,
always triumphed its graphics, particularly when Battlefield 3 came out. I remember.
Yeah, but the style or tone, direction, whatever you want to use for Battlefield isn't bad. The game was fucking shit. Okay, it was buggy, it was laggy, like it just had horrible systems. So we'll see what he goes with this.
War that was happening at the time, Modern Warfare 3 versus Battlefield 3, it was like a console war at the time, or about as juvenile as one, but hey, I was a teenager. But in that little campaign trailer, when you're getting pinned down by a sniper and you had to fire a rocket at it and the building kind of crumbled around the spot.
I might be thinking of a different
I was seeing that
Battlefield,
awesome.
to be honest.
This is going to be the best goddamn game ever.
Exactly.
And about 2,000 games of Operation Metro later, yeah, it was pretty great. I love Battlefield 3. But despite my like for the game, I can't remember a single campaign mission. Better yet, I can't remember a single mission of the campaign, a level, a play space. I know it was in the Middle East, I think. You play as Americans. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, this is one of the weaknesses that games that are very realistic run into, is that because of their realism, they lack a specific artistic style that people can remember.
Okay, so style and tone are still different. Like it is what it is. Like you can't say they're the same when they really are not.
About the campaign, not
because I mean he brought up like movies. Most of the movies he brought up were all like about the way the camera is handled and like certain things happening in like while the camera is like facing it, but it's still like real life. So it's still like as good a graphics as you can get basically because it's real life. So that I don't know if that like I don't know. I just feel like that's a weird thing to say that they're the same and therefore, you know, like style and tone are the same thing when they're really not. Like I just feel like that's a really dumb argument that both Asman and this guy's like trying to say they are when they're not.
just because the story was boring, but also
I remember that bridge.
I don't
Yeah, in
remember
PUBG.
where I was. I don't remember a vista or a combat room or a special encounter. I don't remember anything. Hell, I don't remember anything for the Battlefield 4 campaign.
I do. I remember a lot. So I think that's like a stupid argument. Just because you personally don't remember those things doesn't mean that they did well. Maybe they were bad in a sense, but there were like plenty of things I remember about the new Battlefield 4 campaign, like when you're running through the trenches with like tanks running like could run over you, people having flamethrowers. There's the when you're on the blimp. Like there was a few things I like specifically recall. I don't even play these games, by the way. I'm not a big shooter fan. So this tells me this, like, I just feel like it's kind of bullshit. Like it's a dumb ass argument to make because it's a personal thing. Just because you don't remember it doesn't really prove anything.
Or the Hardline. Remember, I don't even remember Hardline. The only mission I really
I mean, if you don't remember anything about the campaign, I think it just says the campaign sucks, okay? Like, let's just be honest.
Or you didn't
remember
like it.
Battlefield 1 was the opening one, where every time you died, you went to a new person. That was actually pretty cool.
Because I'm thinking about it, what other game is like really like trying to go for like a realistic view that people do remember because it had a great story? Last of Us. The first one, at least. I don't know about the second one. But like, I still remember a lot from The Last of Us 1. It was engaging almost throughout the whole thing, so of course I'm going to remember it. So what does that say? It was going for a more realistic, you know, setting, at least graphics-wise, style, I guess. But the tone of the whole game was also really good. Like, the whole, like, apocalypse, you know, and just trying to survive.
But besides that, I don't remember any of this because none of it's memorable, because graphics triumphed, because it was trying to make it look photorealistic and not try to give it some kind of identity, some kind of
I don't think that's why.
You walk into a room and you think, wow, as you see this kind of environment sprawled out in front of you. It was about making it look realistic. And that made it less than memorable. The story didn't help, but it made it forgettable. Take an almost identical setting though and move it over again.
Like with
Spec Ops The Line. An incredible game Spec Ops is. But when it comes to the setting, it's not identical. American soldiers in a foreign country, generally Middle Eastern, similar colors, lots of buildings and sand. But the parts of Spec Ops just stay in my head so much better. The imagery of that game has so much more.
The only things I really remember about Spec Ops is like the actual desert parts, not really the city parts.
Like, I mean, isn't that scene pretty much straight out of Jarhead? Yeah, it's cinematically appealing. It looks good visually.
Yeah.
It's not just that it's photorealistic, but it's stylized in a way that's memorable.
More character to it. The sand-swept Dubai, how it almost creates some kind of like bowl with the huge
that's
balls
badass.
of sand, the glass towers and skyscrapers all over the area.
I mean,
Sometimes I would walk into a room
weird.
and that imagery would stay with me, either because it was.
But it's also a case where they're not going for realism. Like, you just saw what I saw, right? So it's like, none of that looked real. Like, I mean, it looked like graphically good, in my opinion at least. But at the same time, it's like fantasy. So to me, it's like, okay, maybe you just like fantasy stories over real stories. Which is fine. But don't act like one is like way better objectively than the other. I don't know, I'm really disagreeing with this. First time I'm actually really disagreeing with Asmon here. Because it's like, I think he's in the same boat as this guy, and he's like having it as a 2-in-1, where tone and style, like obviously tone and style beat graphics. That's a 2v1 fight. Like, it doesn't make sense that you would compare both.
So incredibly harrowing, or it was just put together really well. Even in a...
To be fair, I think this is an unfair comparison. Because it's very obvious... Bro, like, this is not real life at all. And it's not like
so
this
incredibly harrowing.
Yeah, this is not real. Like, having a...
I was gonna say, if Asmon, like, I thought he was, like, he didn't bring it up because he agreed, but I'm like, okay.
A bunch of people hanging from street lamps, stuff like this. So obviously this is going to be more realistic than Battlefield, because Battlefield has a realism tone.
Yeah.
Like, this does not have a tone of realism, even though it looks photorealistic. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Fiction versus nonfiction.
It's not real life yet. Other way around. Cartel, no. It was grounded as fuck. This happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me that a bunch of people were hanging from streetlights in a
those
massive,
buildings
like,
were buried?
A massive pile of destroyed cars right outside of Dubai City?
That is also half buried?
Yes. Send me a picture of it. I don't believe you.
Or it was just put together really well. Even in a game about sand-swept Dubai, it still can work with its colors. It still has multiple times where it is bright and vibrant, and it has good-looking colors in an area that should only be gray and tan.
Yeah, but they're not going with, like, a realistic thing. Like, based on what I'm saying, this is, like, fantasy shooter.
Even your characters have sand and blood that constantly get caked onto them as their deteriorating mental state continues.
Well, it's also like, I mean, Dubai is just more interesting than a random other country, because it has like this massive disparity. It's got like these super poor, like almost slave class people, and it also has like the richest people in the world. So like, just visually, it's more interesting.
Yep.
The overwhelming amount of the upside down American flag in a foreign country, I think, has enough symbolism in itself. And its strength is that it pretended to be a Call of Duty Battlefield clone. It pretended to be another modern military shooter. And that's where its strength lies.
Did it? I don't remember anything about that.
Itself.
Like, the friends I had that were really into Call of Duty, they wanted to play this, but it's because it was a shooter, not because they thought it would be like Call of Duty, from what they were telling me. So I don't know if I agree with this point. I mean, it could be that's what he thought, or it could be then like the general sentiment. I just don't think it was.
The story alone is great, but even in a place that you've seen a million times, American soldiers in some place in the Middle East, it still has imagery that sticks with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's fake.
How about one of my favorite video games of all time?
Because it's more extreme, too.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's
Like you saw those video, like all those buildings were freaking buried. Like that's not a thing. I'm sure like small buildings could be buried in sand, but you're talking about like I don't know, 20 floors being buried in sand. That just doesn't seem real to me. Maybe it's true. I think that would be like a big thing on the internet. Dubai being literally buried in sand. Like I'm pretty sure I would have seen like videos or something like that on it, but I don't. I haven't. So
way more fucking extreme.
BioShock. BioShock, even when it came out, didn't have the greatest of graphics. The characters
I think it
moved
did
in that
for its
uncanny
time.
valley
It was
way,
actually
and
pretty good.
faces looked very strange, and overall, it wasn't the greatest at the time.
But that was the style. Like the style is weird in a sense, but like the graphics themselves were actually not bad that I can remember.
Matter. Early 50s, Art Deco, steampunk, horror, underwater city. Throwing all this political intrigue, bit of religion in there, and oh my god, there's nothing like it. But even if you played...
Yeah, of course. It's effectively like a variant of steampunk. So yeah, it's again stylized.
The original 2007 version of the game.
I remember Jason, I bought this game, and Jason came over to my house every day, and he played it and he beat it.
You would still call it beautiful, even if its graphics kind of suck, because it has that environment.
Yeah.
System Shock 2, same thing. Prey 2017. Have you played Prey? Have you played Prey? Why haven't you played Prey? Take the same Art Deco style in BioShock, put it in a space station, change plasmids to alien powers, and give it the Dishonored-looking UI and character.
But it's also a case where the graphics in Prey aren't bad. They're actually pretty good. The style lends itself so it doesn't have to be super realistic, but at the same time, it's still a very graphically good game. It's, I don't know, like it feels like they're really like saying the style be graphics, and that's true. But then at the same time, they were throwing tone in there as if that was the same thing as style or graphics. Like it's completely different things.
Characters. Why have you not played Prey? Did I mention the Mick Gordon soundtrack? I didn't mention the Mick Gordon soundtrack, did I?
Sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite games.
Video game? What the fuck?
Dude, Prey is really good.
That's badass. Yeah, I love music like this.
The last act is a little iffy, but you should really play Prey.
Yeah.
Warhammer,
over a decade ago?
every single faction in Warhammer
Yeah.
pulls from some other media or some other culture, but by mixing that with its sci-fi fantasy elements. But then you take the sci-fi ideas and then you mix it with the fantasy elements like knights and wizards and such, psychers, etc. And then you make those giant knights pray to a spirit in their gun with incense. You turn every ship into a cathedral, and you've got something that really has a unique identity. The Adeptus Mechanicus.
Yeah, exactly. It just looks very appealing, and it looks very... Like, if you see something from Warhammer, you...
But at the same time, look at Warhammer games, and like, if you've ever, I don't know if either of these guys have played them, but when you play on like the lowest graphic settings on a Warhammer game, it looks like dog shit. It just does, especially when you compare it to when it's like, you know, everything's maxed out. Like it's, I don't know, like, yes, direction and tone, like direction. I don't like that term, to be honest, because I don't know if it really conveys anything. But like the style and the tone of something, yeah, it's going to be super important. Like, for example, Warhammer, like he's saying, like the style of Warhammer is actually pretty cool, but the tone of it is even better, in my opinion. Like, I think the tone actually is better than the style for Warhammer. But at the same time, if the graphics are really, really poor, as in the fidelity of like what you're seeing, it just doesn't look good. Like, that's just how it is. And I think that's also a case where it's relevancy. Like, for example, games that you thought looked good back in the PS2 era look like trash now. Does that mean those games were like had garbage graphics? No. For their time, it was really good. And even their style, like, let me think here. Like Sonic's style. like yeah, you can get even more into the graphics while keeping that style. Um, it's more accepted as well, just because that style was lending itself to being poor in graphics. I don't know. I think there's a lot of times people say, "Oh, the aging well or not." I think that's only in a case where the style was kind of specifically targeting the main fault of graphics not being that good. So they kind of had to go with an artsy style, just because realistic just wasn't an option, like it is now.
You know it's from Warhammer. I think a good example of like what this done right is versus done wrong is look at Warcraft 3 and then look at Warcraft 3 Reforged. The
Yeah,
new models are garbage. They suck. But
yeah,
if you go back and you look at the old models, they have that fundamental like flair to them where like they stand out and they look great just on their own. And I would even argue that a lot of things in vanilla WoW were the same way. Like go back and look at weapons in like Burning Crusade or vanilla WoW, and they have like a certain amount of like artistic flair to them. Like remember the
yeah.
axe from like Tempest Keep, or like Soul Cleaver, the axe from it was actually
But at the same time, or the Brotherhood sword, I think as well as a would be a good example. But I still think Warcraft's new weapons just look better. So I don't know what that really says.
from it was from Terran Gorfine and
I think it's also personal preference, right?
Black Temple. Yeah, like a lot of really like Thunder Fury, for example, Untamed Blade. There's another one, Gorehowl. Yeah, Bulwark of Azeroth. So
Yeah.
it's not super high fidelity. It doesn't have like a massive amount of detail to it, but what it does have is extremely stylized and it looks really cool.
I would agree. Yeah.
Combine body augment.
But would it? So does some of the newer weapons and stuff look better? I actually do agree. Think so.
Legacy Defender.
With
Yes.
transhumanism, with body horror, throw on some monk robes, and then have a massive amount of religious zealotry and steampunk. The goddamn Necrons are undead skeletons combined with a massive amount of high
I thought they were
and
machines.
heavy Egyptian themes. This leads
It's
me to the
fucking
physical
badass.
part too, because this isn't just games.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like arts and crafts,
I thought they were like machines that just use like the human skeleton in a sense as a artistic thing. Are they undead? Like actual zombies? I didn't know that.
some
Like I am into Warhammer 40k, but only like casually. Like I think they're cool, but not like super into their in-depth lore. I know like surface level stuff.
sometimes it's better to have an identity with your crafting than it is to make it look really realistic. Hyper realism things like dioramas and such
Yeah.
are incredibly impressive, very cool to look at. But sometimes just having an identity in your own work is more important. And I see this a lot, especially online with artists, people.
I think whether stylized or realistic, if you don't have an identity, which is like to me at least like the tone of it, like that is an issue.
It's a famous, I think it's Picasso quote. It said, it took him 5 years to paint like Michelangelo, but it took him 50 to paint like a 5-year-old. So like this is a very common theme and a common idea in art in general. Like I can be wrong with like a lot of the details, but the essence of it is correct.
Yeah.
They always try to go really hard to make it perfect. I'd say your artistic identity matters more than the minutia of the art itself.
Yeah.
Let's use Warhammer Managers, for example. I'm not a top-level painter. I think I'm decent. I don't think I'm bad, but I am not super high level. But I'm really proud of
That
my
looks really
Sisters of
cool.
Battle army because the combination of the white armor, the magenta robes,
That's very impressive. I will say that is a lot better than mine. And by a lot better, I mean these are really good, and mine look like shit.
and actually creating a base that looks like a field of flowers, I think really adds personality to them. Because you take a faction
Yeah, it looks
that might
incredible.
be one of the most
base really
evil
makes
and
it good.
hardcore in the Imperium, and you give them like a
I love how this guy made an entire YouTube video just for the sole purpose to pat himself on the back for his Warhammer 40k painting skills. I mean, you don't see this kind of devotion from just anybody, all right?
a contradicting art style where they look very holy and they have a field of flowers and all that. It adds this neat contradiction to the army. And so I'm really proud of that army. I make mistakes with my painting all the time. The faces look terrible, but I really like the identity they have when you're playing them on the tabletop. I'm working on a Night Lord's army.
A really great example of this is Bloodborne. If you actually look at the character models in Bloodborne, you will see that they're garbage. But it doesn't matter because the art style of the game is so...
It's the art style and the tone are just stupidly good.
Like, it's so iconic and it's so well done that it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Right now, here's a picture of my obliterator that I'm currently working on. You know, it's not perfect.
A good example for movies is Legend. Remember Legend? It was like a fantasy movie from like the 80s or 90s. Like it obviously it doesn't look great and it doesn't look realistic, but it does look appealing because of the style.
All of my painting
Tom
parts
Cruise
are great.
was in
Sometimes I use too
Valheim.
many
Yep,
coats.
there you
Sometimes
go.
I use too few coats. Sometimes I accidentally bump certain parts of the armor that shouldn't be a certain
Labyrinth
color when I
with,
paint. Yeah, there's problems, but
David
it has
Bowie.
an identity that I really like. Night Lords are criminals and murderers before they even are adults, and so it has that vibe of, okay, unchained out of the prison, the chains around the hand, the barbed wire, that really gives it this feeling that while it has the same color scheme as regular Night Lords, it feels unique. Going for a super well painted 10 out of 10 pro painter looking mini is fine, but I think I'd rather take a 7 out of 10 mini with a unique original style first. The reason I wanted
color theme and style of those colors is more important than how well the edges are painted. Of course that's true.
Yeah, I think most people would agree.
This video is twofold. Firstly, it's a reminder to you creators out there that style sometimes is more important than substance.
And this is something that a lot of streamers don't really understand either. And it's the reason why Tyler1 can be a massively successful streamer with a microphone that looked like it came out of the asshole of a gorilla. It sounds like it came out of the asshole of a gorilla.
Yeah.
But other people, you know, they buy a $300 microphone and they're mad because they're not getting 10,000 viewers. Well, you don't understand like where the value is coming from. You don't get it.
The content.
Yeah,
right.
Streamers have this issue. YouTube content creators have this issue.
Like, I don't know if style is the right word for streamers, but I think like entertainment is more important. In a sense, I could be, maybe he'll say something else, but I think like your own style, yes, that is important. Like Ninja and stuff like that. I don't know if like he was unique in his way, because it was like just a really good player who was a bit toxic, or maybe a lot toxic, depending on who you'd say or talk to. But at the same time, I don't think he was that unique. But at the same time, he was very entertaining versus like the other ones.
Issue, etc.
People keep...
No one's mad because of that? No, I absolutely think this is true. I think that...
Like, I think XQC actually would lean more towards style, but also he's very entertaining as well.
A lot of people that are streamers, and you guys tell me if I'm right about this, a lot of small streamers over-upgrade their setup too early. And they don't focus on content, they focus on having a really good-looking camera, or having a really good microphone, or something like that.
I mean, I wouldn't blame anyone who did that, especially on the microphone end. Because if your microphone sounds really poor and you want to be like, similar to what I'm doing, like someone who's just talking, like it really doesn't sound good. It doesn't. I mean, obviously you could probably get by it. Like, it's not saying like you can't become big from it, but I think it will hold you back if you're someone who is mostly talking and your mic sounds really terrible.
That's not the real goal.
Going for perfect instead of going for unique. Often the media that I consume, games, movies, TV shows, I often rewatch the ones that are 7, 8s out of 10s more than I rewatch the 10 out of 10 ones. Because sometimes the things that are perfect don't speak to you and you don't enjoy as much as the things that are decent. And secondly, I wanted to make this so I can provide examples of the difference between... That
was a weird thing to say, because it's like, okay. I don't know where he was going with that part where it's like things that speak with you. It's like, yeah, but it has absolutely nothing with it being a 10 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. It's things that resonate with you.
Between graphics and art direction,
yeah,
and which one you should aim to go for. It also helps me so that I can point to this video if anyone...
This is also a big concern that people have with Ashes of Creation, actually. It's because Ashes of Creation doesn't have like a very particular style that you can tell, hey, this is Ashes of Creation. And to a lesser extent, I think this is an issue with Lost Ark as well. I think Lost Ark doesn't have as much of a defined style.
I think it does. I would disagree. I think it does. Because when you see Lost Ark and you see gameplay on Lost Ark, almost always you can tell that is Lost Ark. If you take away like let's say like a title for anything like that, you can see it and immediately 9 times out of 10 you're like, oh, that's Lost Ark. So I think it does have its own style to a degree.
Have a style, but it's not as defined and iconic and appealing as something like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, or Genshin Impact.
Yeah, but it's like, to be fair, Genshin Impact, let's say in this alternate universe, Zelda was like Genshin Impact where they're releasing content update after content update after content update, and Zelda like went into like an Asian themed area, right? It would be really hard to tell the difference on what is Genshin Impact and what is Zelda the Breath of the Wild in that setting, because they both use extremely similar styles in terms of the art. So I don't know. Like, I just feel like Asmon's a little wrong in this one, because it's a similar like Lost Ark. You know what I mean? Like when you see it, you know it's Lost Ark. When you see it, you know it's Genshin Impact, only because it's not that they're super unique. It's they have their own style and their own niche in a way. But like Genshin, like some things in Blue Protocol, not is it Blue Protocol? No, Tower of Fantasy is what I'm thinking of. Look identical to Genshin. So I don't know.
Like I'm thinking of games that have like great style, like Riot. Riot has an incredible fucking style with Valorant. Like they completely nailed it. Whatever they were going for, they got it 100 fucking percent. Let's say Diablo. Diablo has a fucking amazing style.
Especially
Overwatch,
Diablo 2.
S tier style. Let's see. Besides that, OSRS. Great style for what they're doing. There you go. And Fortnite, amazing style. Elden Ring, amazing style. And there are also games that have, like, style doesn't make your game good or not, but people will remember the style of a bad game, but they will forget the style of a decent game that, was like okay. Valorant's bland as fuck. Well, then why does everybody do fan art of it? It's because maybe, other people like it.
Says to me, why do you think that game looks good? Its graphics are terrible, i.e. BioShock or something. Because graphics don't matter. Graphics are temporary, and art direction is forever. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you want to buy merch, this is another one of my merch shirts. I like this one a lot. I think it's pretty good. Let me go ahead and answer some questions from y'all. Hey, Bricky, I know you said before if gamer stuff let you make a flavor, what would it be called? I would probably call it something like anime thigh sweat or anime ab sweat. Not because I particularly want to, but more so because I think that would sell like hotcakes. Bricky, how do you think about the new Pentakill app?
Schlatt really had a good idea with the Titty Milk name. That was such a good fucking name. Holy shit, that was so good.
Album. It's pretty good, though I think I've been a little bit spoiled by Guilty Gear. I thought to myself, damn, this isn't bad, but it's not Guilty Gear. More of an Adeptus Ridiculous question. Would short-sleeve mechanical men's shirts ever be a possibility? Maybe. The problem is you have to buy a whole bunch of dark red shirts, and at that point, it almost feels like dark red long sleeve, dark red short sleeve. Is it
merch is hard to do?
Is there enough overlap? So we'll see. Actual questions. It's pretty good. I'll see you next time. It might be a Legends of Runeterra video. I kind of want to do like a follow-up, so we'll see. Bye-bye.
I think this was a really, really good video. I think he gave great examples, and especially the distinction between Battlefield and the second game. I hadn't played the second game, so I don't remember it, what the name of it was. But, like, the distinction between them was absolutely fucking great. This is a great fucking video. Bricky. I've never seen his content before. We'll probably subscribe, maybe watch some more of them. I'll link it to you guys so you can do the same. And Bricky's awesome. Been watching him for a while. Yeah, this is my first video of his that I've seen. Yeah, I think this is fucking great. And right, really good video and explanation. Yeah, I think that more and more you're going to see games going for that type of stylization. And I think that's a great thing. Like, you go for it, like, I don't think Grand Theft Auto has a great style, personally. FIFA doesn't have a great style. Warzone, I don't think it's a great style. Counter-Strike does, but that's because it's so iconic. Let's see. Forspoken, I don't think has a great style to it. It's not unique enough. I don't think Rust has a great style. And why? Because that's not the point of the game. It's not like style is a make or break for games. I just don't think it does. Where you talk about games that are very stylized, League of Legends, Minecraft, Valorant, World of Warcraft, Fortnite, Among Us, Apex Legends is 50-50, I'd say. Overwatch, Genshin Impact, Valheim, Elden Ring, Lost Ark to an extent, Path of Exile. I wish they would lean more into that personally. And yeah, those would be some of the games that I would say are, those are the ones that have like memorable styles that, like, whenever you think of the game, you think of different images in the game.
So I don't know when I muted myself, but it doesn't really matter. I kind of said it more than one time. I don't really agree too much with this, only because I don't think the argument itself is any good, because it doesn't make any sense, really. Of course, graphics are temporary, but so is art style to a degree, because you can always add graphics to an art style, making it look better, and it's harder for people to go back to the previous one once they've seen the new one, if that makes sense. Like, for example, World of Warcraft. Imagine if the next expansion they went back to vanilla's art, like graphics. There would be a lot of people like, "What the fuck? Why does this look like crap again?" Like it people are gonna get mad. Like, they're not gonna be like, "Oh, okay, well, it's back to vanilla." Like, it's not like it wouldn't phase them or anything. No, people would be absolutely pissed. So I don't know. I think overall the argument is just not really there. I think he could have just said, like, focused more on graphics, tone, and style, and what those mean and how they can impact, you visually taking in that medium. You know what I mean? Like, and even then, it's hard to say. I don't know if I was muted when I said it, but to me, it's like, it's a Triforce thing. It's, you have style being at the top, you have tone being second, and then you have graphics being third. And all of them, at least in my opinion, like, contribute to visually it being good in a sense. Like, in terms of people grading, like, oh, what game looks good, what game looks bad, kind of thing. So